Welcome to the Meandering Thoughts Podcast. Who am I? It's the Voiceman, your host. And this is the portal for my thoughts and feelings on all manner of subjects. Today I would like to talk about ADHD, depression, and invisible disabilities. Now, for me, I was diagnosed at 10 with ADHD. Technically ADD at the time. Everything has effectively been sort of combined into just the one ADHD label. And it's tough dealing with it often. It's an everyday thing, just like any other disability. One of the frustrations is that, well, one, there's the judgment that comes with it. The idea that you just can't pay attention. It's more an executive function disorder. When you tell yourself, hey, I'm going to do this thing that I'm going to do today, oftentimes you just don't do it. Or you don't do it for hours until it becomes like crunch time. It's almost like you need the adrenaline boost in order for your brain to get on the right track. Otherwise, you're just kind of floating around. It's as if you're running on emergency mode. You can only function when in an emergency. And this is why people who have ADHD like to travel a lot, for one, because when you are traveling, you're constantly needing to think about all those things that are happening, and you've got a plan, and it functions well in that sense, which is fascinating to me because I love traveling as well. I did it for a month before in the past, and it was a blast, and I want to do it again, and I've been thinking about going to Vegas, and I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I would rather go with friends if I can, but I want to do it soon if I can as well. The thing though is that the judgment comes along as well. The thing about ADHD is that it is an invisible disorder. Case in point, somebody who is paralyzed from the waist down, they're in a wheelchair and you see that they are incapable of walking. And that's the first thing you notice about them. The likelihood with somebody with ADHD or any other invisible disability, a mental disability especially, is that you don't see that. You don't see the disability. You see whatever else there is, the personality or the way that they're dressed or something, and then you make judgments based on that. And oftentimes, the things that they do that would say, for instance, I'm kind of a sloppy dresser overall. I have like the same shirt, but I have like 8 of them, and they're all black. And one is because, it was cheap to buy a package of like 4 twice. And also because I'm insecure about my weight, and that's why I wear black. And they're t-shirts, so they're comfortable and whatever. But I have, nice shorts and nice pants and the like. But those things probably, don't really matter too much. Because if I'm walking around in Old Town Pasadena where, I live, then I'm going to see people who are fashionable. And so I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb. But the thing is that it's not that I don't want to look good. It's mostly just all of the work that goes into looking good. It's extraordinarily difficult to do. Spending every day or any of the days where I want to just go out and relax, but in order to do that, I need to spend 15, 20, 30 minutes ironing shit? No, it's that to me would discourage me and stop me from even going out and doing that thing. And a lot of times, just getting up and doing something actually makes me do stuff. Yesterday, I sat around for like 4 hours before I finally got up and was walking around. Now, granted, that was also a weather-related thing too. I don't want to walk around when it's 90 degrees outside. It was about 85, so, it was a little bit more comfortable, but not by much. And I walked around for like an hour and a half. And, I bought some new sunglasses, which I've been needing to buy for like the last 4 weeks or something. But I haven't done it because I just don't think about it. And that's another issue, is not thinking about it. It's not like, oh, I'll do it later. It's, I forgot because I wasn't dealing with my sunglasses right then, right now. And that's where a lot of it comes from. When you're dealing with it right now, it's a lot easier. Doing this podcast right now, I've got a bullet point list of stuff that I need to talk about in some way or another for this podcast. I learned how to do that from working with the radio class that I finished. I finished it on Wednesday. It was our last class. Well, I learned not to write out everything that you're going to talk about. Use more bullet point it and then, kind of freeball it, ad lib a little. And B, I also learned a little bit more about myself that I kind of already knew, that was reinforced and that I need to try to change, but it's difficult to do because of this, that I pretty much was never prepared the night before, ever. Any day that I had to do a segment on our radio show, I did all my work either within the first hour or within the time frame between the first segment that I did and the next segment. Because we usually did like 2 hours. And then this past week we were doing 3 hours because we only did 3 days, and our instructor wanted to sort of challenge us to be able to do this. And so like on our last day, I was the first person to read news. So I had to read up as much news as I could. I had to write down as much as I could. I basically just copy and pasted stuff that I wanted. But trying to look at stories that you want to read, and you don't want to repeat stuff that's been talked about, or you don't want to oversaturate what people have been talking about, and other people want to talk about other stories, even though they're just reading the news. It requires a bit of effort to actually do this. Well, you can't also do it the night before, because what happens if there's a breaking news story? Well, then, you need to put that in there because that's how news works. So somebody might judge me for being lazy. And this is something that I have been told a lot in my life, that I'm a lazy person. So much so that I even say it jokingly about myself now. I shouldn't. I'm not lazy. I just don't care. Or I do care and it's hard. So, case in point is my acting class. I've had a difficult time memorizing anything in my life. My instructor, although he has a great idea behind it, it's difficult for me to grasp because it takes so much effort for me to memorize. He thinks I'm not working hard enough. And maybe part of it is right, but maybe it's not because I don't want to work hard. It's maybe because I don't know how to. I have never done it. And at the same time, it's very difficult for me to work really hard at something that I'm bad at or that is difficult for me. It's like one of the girls that was in my acting class. She has cerebral palsy. She will have cerebral palsy all of her life. The thing about cerebral palsy is pretty obvious. When I first met her, I knew she had cerebral palsy immediately. That was the first assessment I was able to make about her, other than the fact that, her race. I'm not going to tell you who it is. The thing is that it's the disabilities for something like cerebral palsy is pretty obvious. But over time, with her being in class and sitting, a couple chairs away from me and, getting to know her personality, the disability kind of disappears from your mind. I mean, unless it's something that just sticks on your mind all the time, I don't know. But for me, it just kind of slowly, it was there, but it was like in a back burner, behind frosted glass. You knew it was there, but it wasn't as obvious. Until she had to get up on stage, or until she would leave class for the day. But especially when she got up on stage, because vertical movement for her was very difficult. She would walk up to the stage. The stage is maybe 1.5 feet tops from the floor. She couldn't step up and just walk up there, no big deal. And this is where physical disability and mental disability definitely diverge. When you see her, you notice it. You realize, yes, that's right, she does have this disability. It doesn't define her, obviously. Who she is defines her. But it is part of her definition, as is everything that encompasses part of who we are. The parts make the whole. And so you are defined also by your parts, but not solely by your parts. They are They are the individual words within the sentence that describes you. So when you see this girl climb up on stage and struggle just to turn around and sit down on it and like scoot away from it and then get one of her crutches and push yourself up on it, and you're like, this is an ordeal for her to stand up on stage. She's got to go about preparing her actions, the thing that she's going to do, whatever exercise that she had set up. And then she's got to go through the whole thing and then potentially go through it again, depending on how the instructor wants to direct her. So for her, something that maybe for me or somebody else in the class might take 5 minutes, it might take her 15 or 20 because of her physical limitation. But we're sympathetic to that because it's obvious, it's there, and it's something that we, quote unquote, take for granted every day. But if you look at me, you don't see ADHD, you don't see depression, you don't see the struggle that I deal with every single day. You don't look at my room and see how messy it is and realize that for me, this is stable. The fact that although everything looks messy, I pretty much know where the things that I need are. Because even though it's not well organized, I can't spend that much time organizing. It's agonizing to do that. It is fucking painful sometimes. And yet, you couldn't see the pain. You wouldn't see the pain because you don't see the physical that's associated with it. It's all mental. And you might say, well, it's all mental, so it's just in your fucking head. And the thing is that I'm sure we've all dealt with some kind of difficulty and challenge that makes life harder. But imagine the difficult things that you deal with on a regular basis. Just the other day, my roommate was talking about how he was so much happier that he has a parking pass for his car because he got a bunch of parking tickets and then his car got towed and he had to pay a bunch of money and he had to borrow that money from his parents in order to pay for it and all that other shit. Well, he's okay with getting up to move his car across the street so that they can do street cleaning. But normally he would have had to move his car across the street almost every day because he wasn't able to park here for more than 2 hours beyond a certain time frame because of how fucking common it is for cars to be in LA. Well, now there's an option where you can buy a parking pass, and so he has one. Well, now it's a load off his mind. You know, now he doesn't have to get up every fucking day. And I was like, that's what my life is. That's the stress that I deal with every day with stupid, simple shit. I know because I've had to do stuff like that before. The thing is when you have to, quote unquote, get up at 8 a.m. every day to move your car in order for you to go back to fucking bed so that you can rest, so that you can do the things that you need to do, you at least have an idea of what it's like dealing with ADHD every single day. Every day. And all day, too. You know, there are times, like, that's one of the reasons why I essentially sedate myself with things like Reddit and Imgur and YouTube and shit. I'm trying to turn it off. I'm trying to make my life relaxed. Because otherwise, my brain is everywhere. And I can't think and I can't focus and I'm jittery and I want to get up and I want to move, but then I'm depressed, so I have no motivation to do it. So now I'm in my fucking head, and all that energy that the ADHD is still there is now running around inside my fucking head. And then on top of it, all the negative bullshit that I've received from other people in my life, that's rattling around there too, because I can't fucking forget that shit. And even if I want to get up, I may want to, but I can't. It's like I'm paralyzed. Again, interesting, the paralysis thing. I'm not actually physically paralyzed, but the sensation of some kind of paralysis is there. I'm sure you've woken up in the morning with your arm and it's like, what the fuck? Why is it not doing anything? And then it starts to tingle. At least you know when the tingling's happening, it's working, that you know your arm's fine. But when it's not working, there's a brief moment in your mind where you're frightened, where you're a little scared, you're a little anxious. You may know that your arm will get better soon because it's done it often. And this is a rarity. But what would happen if it happened every day? And that tingling sensation didn't show up for about 3 or 4 hours. Then what? How would you feel about that every day? That is one, I guess, analogy of what depression is like. When you don't get out of bed for 2 hours, even though you're really awake and you just want to go back to sleep because you don't want to be awake. It's not because you don't want to do the things that life are going to give you to that day. Because, I mean, what is today for me? You know what today is? Today's a fucking party. I get to go to a fucking party today. And yet, I still took 2 hours to get out of bed today. I had to wait till I had to pee. That's the tingling sensation. That's when I know I have to be alive. And that's another thing. It's not that I am alive. It's that I have to be. I finally have a reason to get the fuck out of bed. Because otherwise it'd stay. Yesterday, I stayed in bed for as long as I possibly could too, until I needed to pee. Because I didn't have a reason to get up. I need a reason to get up now. Because that's what depression does to you. Even though I have a party to go to today. That wasn't the reason to get up. The reason would be is if I woke up at like fucking now, like, oh, I have like an hour before the party technically starts. I still need to get food. And that's another thing. I'm in the middle of this podcast and I have an hour and about 9 minutes before the party technically starts. I'm going to be fashionably late. No big deal. And I'm sure the party's going to go on pretty much all day. It's a going away party for a bunch of actors who are leaving to Illinois. And great. Awesome. Here's the funny thing. I love parties. I'm an extrovert. I'm going to, kind of go off topic slightly. Extroversion is a personality trait. Same thing with introversion. They are different from shyness or outgoingness. Extroversion is, think of it like a social battery. That kind of personality, extroversion, introversion. Your social battery gets recharged if you are an extrovert when you are around people a lot, like at a party or at a club or something like that. The energy that's in the room like that it makes you stronger almost, right? It makes you feel empowered. It makes you feel less tired. And that's a fascinating thing. When you can use your personality to make you feel less tired. I mean, it's probably why some people can go out fucking clubbing all night, come back to work, and still be fucking fine. Maybe that's a backwards way of looking at it. I don't know. But I've seen plenty of men and women alike who will, they'll go out until 2 or 4 in the morning, and they got to be at work at 9, and somehow they don't look like shit. I don't get it. Whatever. Maybe that's just youth talking, but I've never been that kind of person either. And maybe that's just because I was hit with depression so early on that my level of exhaustion increased dramatically. I don't know. Who knows? An introvert, on the other hand, they get their social battery recharged in smaller groups, when they're by themselves or when they're with small people for a while. My scene partner, for example, the last scene that we did in my acting class, she came over to my place, and it was a drastic change between the amount of work she wanted to do versus when we were at Starbucks. Starbucks is packed. We'd been there for a while. She needed to go check out an apartment thing or whatever, so she was going to come back. Well, I was mentally drained. I couldn't think. I couldn't do whatever. So Starbucks just wasn't working for me that day. And occasionally that happens. Sometimes Starbucks is the best place for me to go to get shit done. And that's why I would do it sometimes for some of my classes. So she comes over to my place she's chilling out on the floor. You know, she doesn't seem to think it's a problem that my room is a fucking mess, whatever. And maybe nobody cares. Maybe I'm the only fucking person who cares. I don't know. But she gets all like pumped and we're like fucking talking about everything. Now, granted, we still talked about all sorts of other shit too, but we got a lot more work done in the brief time that she was here than any other time we met at Starbucks. And based on the things that I talked to her about, she's an introvert. But she's also an outgoing introvert, which is interesting because I'm a shy extrovert. I'm shy till you get to know me. And then I'm not so shy. And I'm trying to overcome that shyness too. But speaking of shyness and extroversion and the like, this party is going to be interesting for me. Because parties are weird for me. They always have been. Like, the first real party that I can remember that I went to, like a house party, and it was for my American Sign Language class in high school. It was like a club situation. And so like all of the students who were a part of the American Sign Language classes were effectively part of the club and were allowed to show up. Well, after about an hour, I ended up on the computer in a chat room. This is back before forums and all sorts of craziness. This is when pretty much the only form of communication you could do on any kind of real basis was through chat rooms. And I ended up in that chat room for at least 2 hours. Pretty much the rest of the night. Let that sink in for a second. I was essentially in a virtual party while at an actual party. And I spent more time talking to the people in the virtual party than the actual party. So it might seem a little weird, because it is. And so, that kind of paints a picture. Now, granted, that was when I was really young. This was 18 years ago at least, because I know my dad was still alive at the time. I had actually shaved for that, by the way, even though there wasn't much to shave, and my dad made fun of me for it, which is why I remember him being alive. But I know that if I go to this party, I can talk to all the people I know. Talking to the people I don't know is going to be harder. It's going to be awkward for me. And since it's a pool party, half these people are going to be fucking naked. And I'm not going to be. I don't have swim trunks. I haven't done any swimming for about a decade. And then on top of it, I want to get, a little bit shit-faced. And, I don't want to be, swimming while shit-faced. And plus, I need to go buy some food so that I can, cook it up so I can eat it, because I haven't had any fucking thing to eat today. So, my life is weird. Always. And I always have some sort of anxiety about something. I don't even like making fucking phone calls. I hate it. Not because I don't like the idea of the phone call. I fucking love the idea of the phone. The phone is fantastic. It has been something throughout all of my life, has made communication easier, and yet I still have a difficult time doing it because I don't like talking to strangers. Stranger danger was perhaps not a good thing. But also, because of stupid shit as a child, like my mother embarrassing me in front of strangers and the like, and the fact that whether or not I was rejected, I constantly had the perception of being rejected. There's times I don't even go to a fucking restaurant because I'm afraid that for some reason I'm gonna look like an idiot and that they're gonna make fun of me or something. Who the fuck thinks that? Why? Why would I think that? It makes no sense. Yet I still do it because I still am dealing with this shit. And nobody would know. The people that know me even barely definitely would know it. And even the people that have seen and worked with me for a little bit probably still don't see it. Because you can't see it. It's fucking invisible. You can't see anxiety until someone is having an anxiety attack. Well, I don't have them. The one time that I can think about a real anxiety attack was when I was in my video editing class this past fall. And I don't know what was happening, but I could not focus at all. I'm able to focus for the most part, right? But it was as if everything in the world was just rushing into my eyes and ears, and it wouldn't shut up. And I could not think. I was trying to focus on what my instructor was saying, and I couldn't fucking understand what she was saying because I couldn't focus on like more than 2 words at a time. Because then something else was, and it was driving me fucking nuts. And I was starting to breathe like I was claustrophobic. I was starting to have, that panic attack situation. And so at one point I stopped working. I put on my headphones and I started listening to music that I know calms me down. And that's pretty much all I did. I got no work done that day. I could not work at all. No work. But if you looked at me, you wouldn't have thought so. Because then at one point I started typing it up. I started typing up like, I know I have it somewhere. It's a file probably on my computer, in fact. It's me typing up my frustrations about what it is that I was dealing with at that moment. Because it was so fucking frustrating. All I remember is that was to just type it out, to get it out somehow. Because it was in me and it was making everything horrible. I guess kind of like, if you think a spider is in your shirt and what do? You take all your fucking clothes off and run around like a crazy person. That's essentially how it felt. But you wouldn't have noticed it because you didn't see it happening. You didn't see me freaking out. Because it was all happening inside me, inside my brain. I'm sure if you had measured my heart rate, it would have been different. You'd have been like, "What's wrong, Justin? Why are you, what's wrong with you? What's going on? Are you okay?" You probably would have been concerned because now you would have had something measurable, something that you could see that denotes something wrong. I can tell you this right now. I'm pretty sure nobody knows exactly what a healthy heart rate is. But for most people, if you go anywhere near 100 and definitely above, if somebody sees your heart rate and it's above 100 and you're sitting still, they're going to think something's wrong with you. The average person would probably do this, unless it's just completely ignorant of health in general. Like they just have had literally no health education whatsoever. And so think about that for a second. Think about that. A person who's had literally no health education sees something that's unhealthy. How do they respond to it? They don't know. So they have to come up with something, especially if it coincides with something they expect of you and what you're doing they don't like. So if they saw that you were laying still when you were supposed to be working and your heart rate was extraordinarily arrhythmic, like you're just going all over the fucking place, you're essentially having a heart attack. Somehow they can see your heart rate, which that would be interesting. But because they don't understand what this arrhythmia is, they don't understand what this heart rate means, all they can do is assume that you're just fucking off. So translate that over to mental health. We don't have mental health classes. We have health classes. We talk about physical health in school. We talk about physical health. We see things on TV, from television shows and the like, that show. We have medical shows that deal with like actual real medical disorders. Scrubs, for instance, is interesting because you almost never, ever see the trauma of the disability. But what do you see? You see how the people respond to it. You see the emotional reactions that they have to the circumstances. I mean, a lot of it's, personal drama, because that's what sells. That's what works. We relate. But look at the episodes with Michael J. Fox when he is an OCD doctor and JD is going to confront him because he can't deal with his own problems. Again, drama. Drama is where it all comes down. And what is drama really? It's your personality. It's your psychology. It's your ignorance of one thing and the miscommunication of another, and that's where the drama comes from. If everybody was able to communicate with each other telepathically, exactly what they were feeling and thinking, what they wanted, and all the other shit, do you really think drama would exist? No. Look at computers. There's no drama between computers. There's drama when humans are involved, because we don't get it. We don't understand. We're ignorant. But we relate because we've experienced the ignorance. We've experienced saying something fucking stupid because we couldn't say what we really wanted to say because of ignorance. Ignorance is a surprisingly driving force in our societies. It's one thing that we use to sell to people. Fuck, it's one thing we use as a platform in order to tell you what you want. That's what advertising is. Advertising is saying, hey, this is what you want. And we tell you enough so that hopefully you want it when the time comes. Ultimately, within the coming decades, within the coming generations, more and more psychological understanding will happen. We'll have education that teaches about it. We'll have the average person who knows this shit, who can see it better. You know, I'm bad. I am so bad at reading body language in general. I could not know if somebody was attracted to me, and mostly that's because of my own insecurities. But I can see it though. I know I can read it. I tell myself that I'm bad at it, but I'm really not. I'm bad at exhibiting it, expressing it, especially because that's a kind of like, I've tried to avoid having emotions come at me. So I've tried to avoid things that would have them, and so I've been very robotic about the way I approach things with my words and my actions. And I'm trying to overcome that, and that's why I'm going to this party, because these people are my actor peeps. Because acting has helped me do this, and I want to keep doing it. And it's weird how acting has been better for my mental health and my social life than almost any other thing I've pursued. I mean, the radio thing definitely hasn't. It's more of the robots thing, and that's why I'm good at it. That's why I'm good at it. Because I get it. I know how it works. It's not a challenge. And so because it's not a challenge, I don't really have to worry about connecting with anybody. The challenge is the networking and getting the job thing. That's going to be the challenge. But, I mean, we need to make it. We need to make a society where just because you don't see it first, you don't come to a judgment when you do see it, when you experience it. Compassion is where that comes from, by the way. Compassion. When somebody's doing something that you don't expect them to do, and it causes you frustration, it's because you lack the compassion. And I am probably the biggest hypocrite in this situation because I still deal with it as well. And maybe it's just because of my pre-programming or something. I don't fucking know. I'm not saying that I'm never going to try to learn to be that. I mean, why do you think I'm fucking doing what I'm doing? That's what acting does. You have to be able to listen with your eyes. You have to also listen with your instinct, with your gut. There's a lot of listening involved in acting. And if you're a bad listener like me, acting's gonna be hard. Maybe I'm not a bad listener. I've been told I'm a good listener because I tend to approach things with that insight that people are looking for. I always thought of myself as a bad listener because I talk so much. But I mean, I guess if you say the right things while you're talking to somebody, then at least it shows that you're listening, I suppose. And people seem to like listening to me for some reason. I mean, I still got people on a fucking Imgur telling me that I got a nice voice. Why not keep going, right? I mean, I still think it's weird, but whatever. There's going to be a point one day where I'm not going to care. As long as I keep doing it, as long as I keep trying to do this, I won't care. But in the meantime, I'll still care. And you probably won't notice unless you know, unless you've listened to this podcast, unless you've learned and tried to overcome the ignorance we all have. We all are ignorant in some way. Ignorance is not a negative. It's a state of being. It's a fact. But we can overcome that. The difference between a light bulb turning on and a light bulb turning off is its position, its switch, its circuitry. It's just facts. But we like it when the light bulb's on, typically, unless we're trying to sleep. We judge that light bulb when it's on when we're asleep, don't we? Well, we judge it based on what we want from it, our relationship with it, and what we want at that time. So, learn how the light bulb works. Learn how we work. Because then you can learn how to turn it on and off. And I don't mean it in a negative way. Sometimes the way to turn on somebody, and I don't necessarily mean sexually, but sometimes too, is to learn how to talk to them, how to be with them, how to interact and create a relationship with them. But the same thing goes to turning them off. You know, when you have an emotional support network like stereotypically females have, you have somebody who knows your inner workings just right to turn off your switch. Because then, as your support network, they get it. And they understand that if you're on at the wrong times, everything goes to shit. The group dynamic is bad. They can't go where they want to go, so they got to calm you down. They got to turn it off. But when they turn you off, you're all the same, and now you can all turn on at the same time. You all turn off at the same time. You can synchronize. You can work together, and you can have a greater experience with each other. And that's what we should do as people in general. I don't have a support network like that. I'd like to have one. But I need people who understand this and get it, who aren't ignorant of this stuff, or who are willing to talk to me about it, who want to learn from me, who need, who need advice or whatever. I mean, I got a friend who, he was like, I'm going to go take this girl out on a date or whatever. And I'm like, don't go to a movie. And he's like, wait, what? Why? He was going to go to the fucking movie for his first date. Because why? Because that's how it used to be. And that's how people have perpetuated this idea of what a first date should be. But the thing is, you don't need to do that anymore. Go do something where you can bond with this person, where you can talk to them, where you can create a relationship. You can't fucking create a relationship with somebody sitting in a movie theater for 2 hours. People say, oh, well, you go watch the movie and then you go to the dinner afterwards, you can talk about the movie. No! Go somewhere you can talk then. Figure out who the person is that you're sitting next to for that 2-hour period. Instead of shutting up and only interjecting here and there like I do. Yeah, I do talk during movies, but I'm not a talker. I'm an interjector. I will judge the situation, be like, okay, quiet moment. Hey, here's something funny that's related. Ha 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 ha. You know, it's inside jokes and saying stupid shit that helps sort of empower the movie a little. I didn't have to do that much with Deadpool because it did it to itself, which is great. Which is why it was such a good movie. Ultimately, we have to learn how to turn off our expectations or lower them or mitigate them somehow. We need to adjust our expectations of other people. And yeah, we can only have so many relationships we can have. But if we attempt to learn the things that are important, physical health, mental health, we can make every relationship in this world better. Not just our interpersonal ones, but across regions and societies and cultures and throughout the globe. It's not going to bring world peace. There's no such thing. It can make it better, though, right? If you like this episode of Meandering Thoughts, please share it on your preferred social media platform. If you would like to be notified of new content, follow me on SoundCloud, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at itsthevoiceman. You can also find Meandering Thoughts on iTunes. Thanks for listening. It's been a pleasure talking.